Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Tonight we are learning Refuah Shlema to Chava Bat Chaya Esther, as well as to all the people in Israel that need Refuah Shlema from all the attacks, as well as Leila Nishmat. Unfortunately now it went up to 1,300 holy souls that lost their lives during this war, as well as Leila Nishmat to Reb Avram ben Chaim Yehuda and Yecheskel ben Reb Avram. So I want to give a disclaimer that this class, this year, is not for everyone. And there will be a lot of, I'm trying not to make it gory at all, but there will be a lot of news in here, and some people, it makes them very anxious, even though the real reason why I'm giving this year with the title that, if you joined, you kind of know what the title is. If you click this year, you probably know already what the title is. But the reason behind this title of people supporting Hamas, people supporting the Palestinian Authority, is because it has come to my attention from a few different sources that people have a lot of anxiety over this, and that is one of the reasons that I decided to speak about it. And the anxiety is what's going to be with the world, like what is the world going to say, better yet, about Israel, about the Jewish nation. And the anxiousness that people get over this, and we'll soon go into great detail on why that anxiousness comes about, and for kind of good reason. This share is really for them, for people that, and I'm going to bring a lot of sources from the news media that's not the Jewish news media, and that's really where the anxiety comes in. So the disclaimer is, for those people that are not familiar what's going on in the world regarding the non-Jewish news media, and you don't have any anxiousness on this, there's no reason for you to listen to this class. Skip it, go to the next one. Even though the information at the end of the class is very important for everyone, but I don't want to give anybody any extra anxiety that is not needed. So, with that being said, since this massacre happened, since the 1,300 Israelis that were murdered, the men, women, and children, the world in general was on Israel's side to a certain extent. That quickly changed, even while the bodies were still warm. There has been a change in the tide, and that change has been continuing. It's something that I thought would happen. I hope that wouldn't, but I thought would happen, and I see that it's happening more and more. You have people that are smart enough, and they look at the evidence in the world, and they see, okay, it looks like Israel is right in this whole, and I'm not talking about Jews, I'm talking about like the secular world that doesn't know what's going on. But now that they see a massacre of 1,300 people in the most brutal way possible, now they come to realization, okay, fine, you know what, maybe what Israel was doing until now was the most humane thing possible. And there are a lot of people that have that seichel, that intellectual understanding, and Baruch Hashem that for them. And it's also Baruch Hashem that it's the leaders of the countries that have this mindset, from anywhere from America to European countries. However, the population in the same countries that the government is supporting Israel is very, very divided. And you have many people that are supporting Palestinians, that are supporting Hamas, better yet. And you could ask yourself, how is it possible? How does this make sense that someone sympathizes with a suicidal murderer? With there's a lot of words that I could say about what these people are, but that is the nicest thing that I could say about them is that they're suicidal murderers. So how can you begin to sympathize? And you look at the world. You look at the protests, you look at the rallies, you're like, for supporting this organization, this terrorist group, this people as a whole, how does this make sense? How are people able to come to this conclusion with what's going on in the world? And the sad truth is, we don't even begin to know of what and how the world really, really feels. There was a interviewer that went around in New York City, going around to people in Manhattan and interviewing them, asking them. This is not recently. This is like maybe a day or maybe a few days after the attack. And he went around asking people, just interviewing random people in the street, what Hamas did was justified. And they ended up speaking to 30 people in New York City. And the astonishing number that came out is 28 out of that 30 said, yes, what Hamas did was justified. Now, many don't know the gory details of what happened in that massacre where terrorists went and brutally murdered 1,300 men, women, and children. But whatever you think could be the worst thing that could happen to a person, to a woman, to a child, they did that and more. Like, that's the level. I do not want to get into gory details. I have the gory details. I do not wish to share the gory details because I don't think that's beneficial to our listeners. But the goriness is beyond comprehension. And this is not something that's hidden. This is something that is very well known. Yet, you still have 28 out of the 30 people said, yeah, what Hamas did was justified. I don't know if I can come to any conclusion where I can say, yes, it's justified to murdering babies. I don't know. I mean, maybe in a far imagination, but I don't know how 28 people can come to the justification and to the conclusion that Hamas was justified. Yet, this is what's happening. This is how people feel in New York City. Again, do not want to cause you anxiety. If this is causing you anxiety, I would either say stop the class, listen to a different class, or skip all the way to the end, because that's where we discuss the reasoning behind this. But let's go on a little bit further. The protests, when George Floyd was murdered by a policeman, there were riots supporting throughout the entire world. One man was murdered. The entire world was rioting to support, not obviously supporting the death, but supporting that rioting, that this was bad and there's something that has to be done for it. There was a death of over 1,000 people in Israel, and within a few hours after the attack, there were rallies. There was rallies that were supporting not the victims, but supporting the terrorists. There were rallies across the world. In Sydney, there were rallies that said, "Gaz the Jews." Now, it wasn't a rally that said, "Free Palestine." They were chanting, "Gaz the Jews." There were rallies in the following countries. Some will shock you, and some will not. Yemen, not a shocker. Iran, not a shocker. Pakistan, not a shocker. Morocco, not as much of a shocker. United States. There was rallies supporting Hamas in United States, Bangladesh, Canada, United Kingdom, India, Australia, Kuwait, and Iraq. Some of them you would think, okay, it makes sense. Some of them you'd be like, wait, what? These are my neighbors. These are the people that I live with. These are the people that are near me. And you know what they're screaming at these rallies? They're screaming, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Now, this is what they're chanting. And let me explain to you, most people don't know what that means. What's from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free? This is referring to from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, that Palestine will be free. This is a territory that's Israel. They're saying that, what are they saying? And this is not from me, this is from the ADL, it's an anti-hate organization, that this is how they're coming out to explain what this slogan means. That from the river, from Jordan to the Mediterranean, meaning the entire Israel, should be free, but not free Palestine as in like let them be free. Because they're, in a sense, they're free to a big extent of what they can do, more than many Israelis, but we're not going to get into that. But what they're referring to is free from the Jews. Palestine, what they want is to be free from the Jews, meaning they don't, what does it mean, freedom? It doesn't mean freedom that they're able to do whatever. They want no Jews. So when people are chanting, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, the meaning behind it, the simple meaning behind it, that means free from Jews. Death to the Jews, remove all the Jews, get rid of the Jews. And people are going and they're chanting in these rallies, in democratic countries, in dictatorships, and everywhere in between. And people come to excuses. The people come to excuses for these terrorists. They have no choice. They are born. They're one of the saying, they're born dead. And what else could they do but fight back? And you know how these twisted-minded people, what they're saying is, oh, this is something that is heroic. What they're doing. I don't know how somebody in their right mind can come and say what they did was heroic. murdering innocent women and children. I don't know how you can say it. They weren't fighting against the army. They were fighting against civilians. And if you think, okay, wait a minute, they have no choice. Every single peace talk, okay, whether I agree with it or not, you could look at some of my previous classes. My stance on peace is very, very clear. But regardless of that, every single peace talk that the Israeli government did with the Palestinians walked away. They didn't counter and say, you know what, we want this, but not this, and then we'll do peace. No. They walked away. You want to know why they walked away? Because from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. They don't want peace. They want no Jews. That's what they want. And they're very, very clear about it. And if you think, okay, you know what, it's the Arabs, and they're siding with their own. And it would make sense you would side with their own. But it's not. It's the liberal left, it's Americans, it's Canadians, it's Australians that are not Islamic, that are not Arabic, and they are siding with these people. And you're coming to a question that's very, very appropriate, and that is how? How? It's so obvious. There was just a massacre. How are you supporting terrorists? If this terrorist would have done, even a small percentage of what they did to Israel, to any of these rioters' families, they would denounce them from today until tomorrow. So what happened now that it's against the Jews that our people are siding with the terrorists? And that is what people are talking about. This is what people are asking, and this is what brings people anxiety. But as anything that we do, and whenever we look at current events, there's always lessons that we have to take away. And before we answer the how, we have to stop for a second and look, do we look at our own lives the same way? We say this is so obvious that Israel's in the right. This is so obvious, like only an idiotic anti-Semite would see the otherwise. So how could they? How could they side with that? It's so obvious. But if we stop for a second and we look into our own lives, how many things are so obvious in our lives, and yet we tend not to see it? How many things are so obviously and clearly Yad Hashem, the hand of God, and yet we don't see it? How many things are so clearly that we know it's wrong, we shouldn't do, yet we don't see it? How many things are clearly that we should do, and we don't see it? So we always have to stop for a second. And we're going to get into a lot more detail, but I wanted to stop for a second and say, maybe this is something that we could look into our own lives. Maybe this is something that we could see in our own lives that is as clear as day as we're telling other people, it's so clear, how can you be so blind? Then maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us, how can you be so blind? It's so clear. And each one can interpret that in their own ways, in their own lives. But let's take it a step further. Last night, on October 17th, at about 7 p.m. local time in Israel, there was a hospital in Gaza that was hit with a missile. Now, this is, I'm sure every single person is aware of this situation. Every single person heard about this. This missile, just for clarity's sake, landed in the hospital parking lot. It didn't land on the building. It landed on the parking lot. There has been days upon days on debates on how many terrorists killed, how many Israeli people or babies and women were killed in these terrorists. Well, was it this amount? Was it 1,300? Was it 1,100? Was it 700? Was it 300? Days and days coming to a calculation and tallying up how many Jewish people were killed during this massacre. Within a half hour, and I'm being very generous by saying a half hour because it really has been within minutes, but let's say within a half hour, the majority of the media, not the Arabic media, the world media, came out and said that 500 people in Gaza died from this attack on the hospital. And who did they blame it on? None other than Israel. It was an airstrike. They were very clear on what it was. It was an airstrike that went and targeted a hospital and killed within minutes. They were able to somehow do a tally, doing some sort of Rain Man shtick, and they were able to say, oh yeah, we see over here 500 people died. Over 500 people died. And, all the news media jumped on this. Not to use this as any example, but whenever I do, a class, I do research from all areas. And Al Jazeera, which if you don't know what that is, good. Don't look it up. Don't know about it. It's garbage. No, you know what? Garbage makes it look nice and good. It's less than that. Al Jazeera, the title was a massacre. They got to use the same word, all right? A tit for tat. Massacre. Israel kills 500 in Gaza hospital strike. Not too long after that, there was a journalist from that same said company, organization, Al Jazeera. The name of this journalist was the name of Farida Khan. She was working in Gaza, and she posts on social media that she saw with her own eyes that it wasn't an Israel airstrike. This was very, very shortly after this attack. It was a Hamas Ayesh 250 rocket. And she writes in her post that Al Jazeera is lying. The truth of the matter, and this came out a little bit later, Israel went and did some research on it. It turns out that Islamic Jihad, another terrorist organization in Gaza, not only Hamas is over there, also Islamic Jihad, they blew up the hospital. How did they blow up the hospital? It was obviously an accident, and they wanted to kill Jews. And one of their rockets didn't make it into the Jewish territory and landed in Gaza and ended up in this, in the parking lot of Gaza. Now, this information came out, and everybody was aware when this information came out that Israel was not responsible for this attack. Yet, at this point, when all this information came out, American news media, including CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, BBC, I've done too much research on this. I am not interested. I don't enjoy this type of research. But they all came out with what? With a similar title. And the title was Palestinian and Israeli official are at odds over who is to blame for the devastation. Now, this is after everything was confirmed. Now, when I say it was confirmed, that means with proof. What is the proof that this came into being, that this was not Israel? And you'll soon see why I'm bringing up all this information and getting so much into current events. Why was this so obvious? The proof, what came in all different facets. It came in visual, meaning they had video. And it wasn't an IDF video. They have a video, I believe it was Channel 12. I don't know from where. It was just a news outlet. It wasn't a Israeli news outlet. It was either some sort of foreign news outlet that they had a camera pointed at Gaza for, just to see what's going on. And they released the footage. And the footage shows that you see from Gaza bunch of missiles shooting out towards Israel, and one of them didn't make it, landed short and blew up, and you see an explosion over there. This came out with visual proof, and if that wasn't good enough, there was radar. The IDF sent out another clip with radar showing on how this was from Gaza and not from Israel. And if that wasn't enough, the IDF released a taped phone conversation, or better yet, a tapped phone conversation between two Hamas terrorists, confirming that it was from their own. And this is widely available on all news media. It's widely available. Yet, this happened yesterday, right before the class. I was a little bit late because I wanted to see, wait, maybe they changed their mind. I went really quickly right before we started this class. What's the world saying about this particular thing? And I looked at news media, and you know what they're showing? The secular world? The devastating Gaza hospital blast, I'm quoting, is shrouded with uncertainty. And the title continues, here's what we know and here's what we don't know. Wait a minute. Uncertainty? Like, what more proof do you need? How much more proof do you need? You have visual, you have audio. You have visual from different levels of visuals, for crying out loud. Yet somehow people are like, I don't know. Maybe the Palestinians, Hamas is saying that it's Israel. Oh wait, Hamas. Let's think about it. Hamas, the people that are terrorists, the people that have nonstop been lying about everything that they're doing, they're saying it's Israel's fault. Yet Israel is saying, no, wait a minute, we have proof showing A, B, and C, D that it's very clearly not Israel's fault. And now it's a mystery. We don't know. Now, when you're coming and when you're looking at this information, you'd be like, wait a minute, what? How? How can somebody with a head on their shoulders come to a conclusion and say, we don't know. These are journalists. These are people that are supposed to, present the information. How can they come to a title that say that it's uncertain? And now Gaza health officials, whatever that means, Hamas, basically telling them they're claiming that it was 400 people that died from the blast. And if you look at the blast, you look at the pictures. This is a missile that landed in the parking lot. There's a small hole in the parking lot, really small hole. You have some broken glass, maybe an exploded car, but that's about it. The hospital still stands. Everything else in the surrounding still stands. If Israel wanted to I don't know if you've seen the videos. If Israel wants to destroy a building, it's down within 2 seconds flat. That's not an exaggeration. Within 2 seconds, it's flattened. If they wanted to destroy the hospital, there will not be a hospital. The fact that you could think of it like, this would be the biggest fail. The biggest fail. And now you have all this news media that's coming to this conclusion that's saying that, it's Israel. Israel is doing it. And like we know, anything that we do in this world has effects. It has a repercussion. If you help someone do a mitzvah, you get rewarded for that mitzvah. If you help someone do an avera, if you help someone do a sin, you get part of that sin. You know what happened when all these news media coverage came out saying that Israel did this, even though it's blatant lie? You know what happened? Throughout the entire world, U.S. and Israeli embassies are being attacked. Fires, fireworks, ammunition, who knows what damage. And you know whose fault this is? This is a fault of the media coverage. Who gave you permission to come to a conclusion of what you are using? Al Jazeera? Who are you using? You're using Hamas information? There was a joke that I've seen that you have kind of like New York Times on a Zoom meeting with Hamas terrorists and be like, what should our next headline be? Because obviously we're looking to you, the most sophisticated, the most advanced, the most moral people in the world. We have to follow with what you're saying. Are you kidding me? This is the world that we're living in. We're coming to a conclusion that is false, and even after proven, we don't see it. We don't see it. Again, it's so hard to fathom how people could come to such a conclusion. Yet not only it's happening, it's spreading out. And again, the Jewish people are asking, why? How is this even possible? And let me take this a step further. And we'll soon get to the point. I am making my point very, very deep before I clarify it. So bear with me on it. A lot of news coverage like to call out that Israel should retaliate, but they should retaliate in a proportional manner. An exact quote would be reasonable, proportionate, and a moral response. For anybody who has ever read anything about any war ever, nothing is proportional. You can't be... What does proportional even mean? Be like, so we should wait for Gaza to have a music festival and then go murder about 300 people, capture about another 199, and then go into their towns and murder their babies and behead their babies and who knows what else to the women and children? Is that proportional? Is that what we should do? No war has ever been proportional. So why is it that the media coverage is screaming out proportional? They never said that when Osama bin Laden attacked America and took down the towers and the Pentagon and who knows what the other damage that he has done with thousands of American lives being lost, did everybody in the news coverage says, wait a minute, no, you can't hurt terrorists, got to be proportional? No. They didn't say that. They didn't scream about, wait a minute, humanitarian rights. America did what they needed to do. And now Israel is doing what it's needed to do with 1,000 eyes looking down at it. That same eyes that is able to see exactly what the terrorists are doing, but yet they're not looking at that. Now, doesn't this scream at you, wait a minute, what's going on over here? Do you not see something that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is showing us? Is it not obvious yet? And if it's not, then let's take it a step further. This news coverage is calling for, a proportionate response. What would you say a proportionate response? I saw this. I thought it was fascinating and hilarious at the same time, as much as I hope I can say that. And that was when Gilad Shalit was released. You know what the transfer was? It was one hostage, Gilad Shalit, for 1,027 prisoners. That was, the proportion was 1 to 1,027. And if you want to use the proportional respond to that, you know what 1 to 1,027 is? The 1,300 Israelis would equal to 1.3 million, Gaza, Hamas terrorists, or whatever it is that you want to, however it is you want to clarify, classify them. Is that proportional? Is that the proportion that you want? Because that's what we gave for one of ours. We have to give back 1,027. So does that mean when they kill 1,300 of ours, we could do that times 1,027? Is that what's the proportion? So who is standing with the Palestinians? Who is standing with Hamas, better yet? Israel sends messages. We spoke about this last week. They send leaflets, they send text messages, they make phone calls, they even do these noise bombs where they do a bomb and be like, hey, by the way, if you didn't get every other message we sent to you, we are going to bomb this place. And when Israel bombs a place, that means they level a place. So it's best for you to get out. No one else does that. Russia didn't do that in Ukraine. No other army in the world does that. They don't say, hey, by the way, we're going to bomb you, but maybe get away from here because we don't want to hurt anybody. Nobody else does that. So proportional? How do you compare that with murdering innocent men, women, and children to hey, knock, knock, I want to take down this thing because you killed so many of ours, so please leave. Yet Israel is still doing that, the most humanitarian thing possible that they're not responsible to do, and yet they still have these left idiots that they go and be like, no, but where are they going to go? You want to know where they're going to go? When the Israel dropped thousands of leaflets to tell you that they're going to bomb the place, they put a map over there in case you're, nothing going on in your head over there. They were like, we're going to bomb here, you go here. Directions, travel along the red line to this point. And if that's not bad, if that's not easy enough for you, they even say, we're not bombing between this time and this time, so please travel now. How much clearer can you be? How much clearer can you be in this situation? And yet the world still doesn't see this, and people are anxious about it. And again, we're going to take it a little bit deeper before we clarify and before we answer this. Many people, I thought it was only non-Jews, but after my last after the last class that we gave, I surprisingly got emails, messages, text messages from people, and I really think everyone that did reach out to me for that the Jewish religious Orthodox, they were like, oh no, you really opened my mind. I really thought that the Palestinian had some sort of, obviously they didn't, they weren't justified, but they had some sort of reasoning of what they're doing. So many people are thinking that they're innocent, that most of them are innocent, and most of them want to live peacefully. And I'm not talking about Hamas over here. I'm going to be very controversial, and I'm going to say I'm talking about the Palestinians, that many of them want to live peacefully. In fact, many say most of them want to live peacefully. And while that may be true to a certain extent, one word I wouldn't use, and that most of them. Most of them, I do not believe, want to live peacefully. There is a widespread support from Palestinian Authority and from Palestine for Hamas. Again, remember, they were an elected government. And this is going to shock you, but Palestinian Authority, not Hamas, the PA, will pay the families of these 1,500 terrorists, Hamas terrorists, that are dead. They're going to pay the families almost $3 million this month. The way that it works in the Palestinian Authority, for those people who think the Palestinians want peace, that every terrorist that is killed in the line of duty, i.e., what does it mean, the line of duty? Attacking Israelis or being a martyr. The family receives, first of all, immediately about $1,500 American dollars, and then about $353 per month. That comes out to about 1,400 shekel per month, an allowance for life. If you have a family member that went and killed an Israeli person in cold blood, they reward them for that. They get an allowance. They pay for that. If they're married and if they have children, the terrorists, they get an even higher rate. And there was about 50 terrorists that were captured alive during this massacre. they're going to be getting salaries while they're in prison. Meaning the PA, the Palestinian Authority, the ones that, oh yeah, we should make peace with, they're paying these terrorists, oh, by the way, thank you for what you did for trying to murder Israelis, and we're paying you a monthly stipend. And if you're in prison, you start off with 1,400 shekel a month, and it eventually goes up to 12,000 shekel a month. Meaning that they're making it very, very financially beneficial for people to become terrorists. And if you're married with children, you get even more money. And you would want to say, like, where is all this money come from? How is the Palestinian Authority, how are they affording it? Well, again, the United States, the President of the United States, we got to give him credit where credit is due, is standing up for Israel. But today, President Joe Biden announced that the U.S. government is going to give $100 million to support Palestinians. Where do you think that money is going? It's almost idiotic when you take a step back, and when you look what's going on. You have America giving money to the Palestinian and America giving money to Israel. And granted, Israel way above it, and we're thankful for that. We have to show HaKadosh, we have to show gratitude. Gratitude is due. America really stepped up. Joe Biden really stepped up and is supporting Israel. But let's not be fooled for a moment. And there was a meme that I saw where you see rockets being fired from Gaza, and then the Iron Dome intercepting those rockets, and then above that, in letters, you see above Gaza, paid by the U.S. tax dollars, and above the Iron Dome, paid by U.S. tax dollars. These was all paid for it. And in fact, the way it went is a little bit around, because U.S. released money to Iran, and Iran went and paid for all this, all this pleasantry, all these gift baskets that they're sending us. So you're looking at all these innocent Palestinians, and yes, many of them are. Don't get me wrong, many of them are, and they don't deserve to die. I'm not saying that they deserve to die. I'm not saying that they should all be eradicated. Many of them are innocent. Many of them are really good people. And I'll tell you personally, I have people that are Arabic, that are Islamic from origin. They listen to Shiurim. They love the Jewish people. They want to be Jewish. They're scared to about it. From all Arabic countries, there are many people that are good. They're scared. They're stuck in a situation, but most of them, I don't believe so. I do not believe so. You know what they teach in Gaza? They teach kids, not college educated. They teach kids to hate Jews. They teach children, to cause terrorist attacks. There are camps. These are videos that Israel didn't put out. Hamas puts out. That kids and teenagers are trained to kill Jewish people. Not to kill the army, to kill the Jews. Kill the innocent men, women, and children. And in fact, there's a game. And the game is called Stab the Jew. And you can see this video is online where you see Palestinians are walking. They have these yarmulkes. And then you have other kids walking with knives, and they go and they stab the Jews. And this is the game that they're trained as little children. This is the education that they're getting in these places. And the education that the Palestinians and the people in Gaza are giving their children is not about love and peace for all those naive people. It's about hatred and murder. To take this a little bit further, Gaza is one of the most, if not the most densely populated area in the world. There are 199 hostages. Many of our children, our women, one of them is a Holocaust survivor, elderly. You're telling me that the people from Palestine, that they don't know where they are? How do you hide 199 people in such a densely populated? People know where they are. The Palestinians, people in Gaza, they know where they are. The innocent people, they know exactly where they are. You can't hide so many. I'll make it very simple for you. There was a French-Israeli citizen by the name of Mia Shem, one of the hostages, that came out in a video saying, they're treating me nicely, but whatever, all obviously under the gun of Gaza. But they say over there, she was in the hospital for 3 hours because she was injured. Where are the surgeons, the doctors? They didn't know that she was a hostage. They didn't know about this. United Nations, you think the the humanitarian situations that are going on, that they don't know exactly where these hostages are? Under which regulation of war is this allowed? If they're so good and there's so many innocent people, why are they not stepping up and saying, you know what? This is not right. And now, granted, they can't say that. They can't. They can't because, the Hamas terrorists will kill them. But are they presenting this information there's plenty of ways to send this information to the IDF. Are they doing that? I don't know. I hope so. Chances are probably not. Maybe some are. I want to share with you something from something we shared before by the name of a woman by the name of Bridget Gabriel. She is a Lebanese American conservative author. She claims, she from Lebanon. She claims that 15 to 25% of the world's Islamic people are plotting to attack the West. That means that 15 to 25% of Muslims are radical. Whatever this number it is, if it's true or not, I'll let you decide for that. I'm just presenting the information of what she brings out. Right now, there's 1.9 billion Muslims in the world. If you take 15 to 25%, that ranges between 285 million to 475 million radical Muslims. That's not a low number. That's a number of amount of people that live in America. That's how big that number is. Now you could say, well, most of them are peaceful. And you know what? In that, when you speak about most in the Islamic world, I agree with you. They are peaceful. Most of them really are. But the most of them is irrelevant. Germans, most of them were peaceful. That was irrelevant. 6 million Jews died. 60 million people overall. Russia, historically, most of them were peaceful. Again, didn't make a difference because they were able to kill 20 million people. China, most of them were peaceful. Again, didn't matter because they were able to kill 70 million people. So when you look at this number, 15 to 25%, what do you think is the percentage in Gaza? And again, I do not want to scare anyone. I do not want to cause anyone anxiety. So skip over the following thing because it will be not a fun fact. What percentage of people do you think live in Gaza that are radical and want to kill Jews? If you think 15 to 25%, then you're daydreaming because it's a lot higher than that. But you know what? Let's say 25%. You know what 25% of the 2.2 million people living in Gaza? That's 550,000 radical Muslims that want to kill people in the West. That's not just Israel. That's America, Canada, Australia, just anywhere that's not Sharia law, anywhere that's not Islamic, run. That's what they want to destroy. That's the best scenario. The realistic scenario is probably closer to 90, but even if we say it's 60% of what people in Gaza, because again, maybe you could say it's not to their fault, and you know what? I'll probably agree with you that it's really not their fault because they're trained from when they're little kids to hate. So how do you blame them? Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu can judge. We can't judge. But realistically speaking, I think 60% is a very fair number. You know what 60% of 2.2 million people are? That's 1.3 million people. 1.3 million people. That's a lot. A lot of people that want Jews dead. So now, to just clarify what they are saying, and this is a direct quote, they love life, meaning the Jews, we love death. That is what Hamas is saying. Now, many people in the West are claiming that this Gaza is the world's largest open-air prison. The world screams, this is barbaric. This is unhumane. There's a humanitarian crisis that's going on over here. What do you do to somebody that yells from the river to the sea? Meaning all Jews should die, is what they're really saying. They're screaming, all Jews should die. What should the Jews do? Should the Jews just open up and say oh, Bechavot, please come in? What really should be done is get rid of them. Someone what does the Torah tells us? If someone's coming to kill you, hashkem la'argo, you have to go and kill him first. You don't wait and be like, oh, let's see what's going to happen. No, you go and destroy. But Israel doesn't destroy them. They say, okay, wait, you want to kill us? And they're like, yeah, we want to kill you. I'm like, okay, so we're going to build a wall. barbarianism. Like, how could you build a wall and lock us in? But like, if we'll let you out, you're going to kill us, right? Yeah, we'll definitely kill everybody from the river to the sea. Yeah, we're going to kill every single person over there. No doubt. Proof of the matter is, it just happened. Oh, but like, okay, so I guess we're just going to build a wall to protect us. People don't realize the reason why the wall is there. And by the way, the wall is not only on Israel's side. It's also on Egypt's side. Yeah, not a single news media, speaks about that. Well, that's a little bit more on that later. The wall is there to protect the Israelis, not to block in the Palestinians. The Palestinians do whatever it is that you need to do, you want to do. We're here to protect ourselves, and that's why we put a wall. And you know what? The world is screaming, this is an open-air prison. Are you kidding me? What would you do? What would you do if you had people that are screaming to kill you? And you just look at like how humane Israel is. Again, I don't agree with everything, but let's present facts. There are almost 7 million Arabs surrounding Israel, including in Israel. In Gaza, there's over 2 million. In the West Bank, there's 3 million. In Israel, meaning as an Israeli Arab, there are people that are in the Knesset that are Arabic, that are Islamic. In Israel, there's 1.6 million Arabs. In a nation that's almost 9 million? There's 1.6 million Arabs in the Israel as a citizen of Israel. How many Jews are in these Islamic countries? How many Jews are in Turkey? How many Jews are in Egypt? How many Jews are in Yemen? How many Jews are in Syria? How many Jews are in Iraq? How many Jews are in Jordan? Let me make it a little bit more simpler. How many Jews are in the West Bank? How many Jews are in Gaza? The answer is a fat 0. The Palestinians, the Arabs, they're all over. The Jews welcome them in. How many Jews are in the Arabic countries? Fat 0. There's none. This information is basic knowledge. You don't have to be a genius to learn this. So the question that I ask again and again is, how is it that so many people around the world do not see this? How is it possible that so many people are blinded by evil? And this is something that unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, however you want to say it, the Jewish world is glued to the media at this point. We care about our brothers and sisters in Israel. So how is it possible that so many people are supporting this? But then again, if we just stop for a second, because we're going to get even deeper. I know it's been a while, and I didn't get to my point yet, but I want to make my point very, very clear. But we stop for a second and look at lessons in our own life. We say, how are so many people blinded to evil? But we could also ask that in our own lives. How many of us are blinded to the Satan? How many of us are blinded to the evil? Why is it that we needed this to bring us closer together as a nation? Why is it that this is what brought us for Achdus? And you got to give credit where credit's due. Mika Amcha Yisrael. I have never in my life have seen such Achdus for Klal Yisrael and Ken Yerbu. It's amazing. I love it, and I hope that it continues and grows. I have never seen such unity among the Jewish people. Jewish people were just a month ago, different factions, different seculars, religious Orthodox who hated each other, love each other, sing and dance together with each other. Just to give you an example that I heard a story maybe an hour ago. There was a rabbi in the IDF that said over the story. He's a soldier, and he said that somebody came to his platoon, and he said, I made 300 meals for the soldiers. And the soldier was like, okay, we have to speak to our rabbi to make sure that it's kosher. So he says, do you mind speaking to the rabbi? He says, no, not at all. This is a random Israeli citizen. They brought him over to this rabbi, and the rabbi, says, we really appreciate that you made for us 300 meals for our soldiers, but there is a kashrus question. Is it kosher? This was a religious, platoon. So this secular, very obviously secular kibbutznik, someone from a kibbutz said, listen, he says, I want to tell you something. He said, there's only 2 times in my life, as a person living in Israel, there's only 2 times in my life that I spoke to a rabbi. You are the second time. The first time was somebody, a rabbi that I spoke to yesterday. Yesterday I called a rabbi and I said, I want to cook 300 meals for the Israeli soldiers. But I know that they're not all going to eat it unless it's kosher. So I want you to come. I want you to kosher my kitchen. I want you to show me what to do because I want to make sure that every Israeli Jewish soldier is able to eat my meal. And he said, you're the second person that I ever spoke to, a rabbi, in my life. And I want to tell you, this is 100% kosher. Mika Amcha Yisrael. Who can ever... The way that the world was working before this attack, it was just the divide between secular and orthodox, between the Haredi and the Chilonim, was just going greater and greater by the second. And all of a sudden, within a day, we are united like I have never seen before. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable, the unity that we see, the achdus, the singing, the outpouring. And it's not just for Israel. In America, how much do we just send to Israel? We just care about them. How many shuls are davening for the Chayalim? How many places are just saying Tehillim for the Jewish soldiers, secular, not secular, Israeli, the Arab, why is this thing, slipping my mind? There are non-Jews that serve in the Israeli army. It's slipping my mind. I don't know. It's going to come to me in a second. Yes, thank you. The Druzim. Thank you. How come everybody's davening for those that are supporting Israel? The achdus is unbelievable. And it's great and it should continue. But the question that we have to ask ourselves is, why did it take this to bring us together? How are we blinded, so blinded by evil? The world is blinded by evil to now. But in a sense, we were also blinded. And we have to double down. It's only going to take a matter of time when things are going to cool off. And Emir Hashem that they should cool off. But just when things cool off, we tend to cool off on our Kabbalahs, on our things. So you started saying Tehillim, you started davening, you started keeping Shabbos, you started ripping off all, destroying all your clothes that are not tznius. What's going to happen when this goes where? You're going to go back to your old ways? We have to make sure we double down. You know what never again means? Never again means that we double down and we make sure that it doesn't happen again, spiritually speaking. So just like we see the world, and this is the second lesson, just like we see the world is blinded by evil, we can ask ourselves, are we also blinded by evil? What do we introduce into our homes that the Satan creates? What do we think that the Satan brings in? How many of us introduce evil and HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the people in Shemayim are going like, wait a minute, it's so obviously evil. What are you doing? Just like we're screaming at everybody else, it's so evil. How can you side with them? We have to stop for a second and look into our own lives and what we're doing and be like, wait a minute, what's evil in our own lives that we have to eradicate? Let's take this a step further. I know it's getting late, so bear with me. Because at this point I need to come across. And by the way, this is all just an introduction to what I'm going to say. It's not going to be that long. I'm going to bring my point fairly quickly. But this is all just showing you how blatantly blinded the world is. Russia, China, Turkey, Iran, Syria, and many, many more are calling out Israel for human rights violation. Now, there's an organization called the Human Rights Watch. They're calling out all these countries, and whenever there's a human rights violation, let's look at these countries one by one. Russia, which is very obviously known for executing, torturing, beating civilians, have come and say, wait a minute, there is a human violation going on over here. And now, I don't know how you can be less blinded by this and be like, they're literally massacring like their own and people nearby them in Ukraine, and they're coming out and saying, wait a minute, this is a violation over here, what's going on with Israel? How do you denounce Israel? I don't know. But that's what's going on, and people are like, yeah. Somehow people do not make that connection. I don't know how. China is another country that's calling human rights violation on Israel. China has a coercive population control. They have forced labor. They torture, they abuse, they repress religious expression, they do many, many more. Yet the Chinese foreign minister, Wang Yi, says they're warning that Palestine is in a critical situation. Wait a minute. Murderers, terrorists are in a critical situation? Isn't that good? Like, don't we want terrorists to be eradicated? Why would anybody want... This is not a political movement. This is not a political movement will be like, let's come to some sort of peace agreement. This is not from the river to the sea. That's not political. That's genocide is what they want. China has zero... they didn't condemn Hamas once. From the start. And, there's a professor from Tom King University who focuses on China-Israel relations. Does he want to know why China did not denounce Israel once? By the way, as I'm giving you this information, I'm wondering, I don't think you guys need to listen to news. I could just give you guys the news, because technically that's what I'm doing right now. But we'll soon see what the point of all this is. But this professor, you want to know why he said that China is not denouncing Israel? There's financial reasons behind it. They want to score points with the Arab countries, and they know if they denounce Israel, the Arab countries are going to go against them. It's all financial at this point. And in fact, CNN, that they are, but they said that weapons that used by Hamas appear to be Russian and Chinese made. So it makes sense why they're going and siding with this side. The fact that Syria is screaming human rights is beyond understanding. They literally murdered hundreds of thousands of their own, and not too long after that they're saying, well, humanitarian crisis over here. I don't know how the world can take this information and when I'm reading this information, I'm like, wait a minute, this is a joke, right? They're like, this can't be real, right? You can't tell me that Turkey, Iran, and Egypt are over here denouncing. Are you kidding me? What? There's got to be a joke. But it's not. And that's the scary part. It's not. Egypt is adding reinforcement, preventing these people in Gaza from going into Egypt. Islam, guys, you're one of the own. It's your brothers. Take them in. Humanitarian aid, take them in. Why are you not taking them in? No, they're blocking them out. You want to know why? Because nobody wants terrorists. They know that they can't vet out Hamas, and who knows how much of Gaza is Hamas. Israel put itself in a situation that I don't know how they're going to get out of. Only of siyata deshmaya, of Hashem's mercy. I don't know how. How many people, the 2.2 million people, are Hamas-oriented and just want to destroy? Egypt knows Gaza has that. That's why they don't want them. No country wants them. Yet it's Israel's responsibility to take care of them. Oh, what are you doing with the electric and the water? Why should I supply with the enemy with infrastructure? Why? Can you begin to think about that? Now, for many of you that are listening to this class this year, you're like, yeah, you agree with 100% of what I'm saying. So then you come to a conclusion and be like, wait a minute, so how come the world is not? And it doesn't make any sense. The riots, the rallies, these are, all over the world. This is a small country. Israel is a tiny country. There's riots throughout the entire world because of this. And you see people interviewing. I believe it was Fox News, but don't quote me on it. You see them interviewing protesters, and they're like, we should stop the massacre, right? And they're like, yeah, you have to stop the massacre, and yeah, we should stop the murder of Israeli babies. And the other person that they're like, wait, what? They're like, yeah, and the journalist is like, we should stop the murder of Israeli children. And you know what the protester says? About we didn't see any information on that proving it. It's all made up. You know what? These people, and these are not, very, very obviously not Arabic origin, which I would understand. These are American. These are Australian. These are Canadian. These are European people that are saying that, no, this didn't happen. The massacre of the Jewish babies didn't happen. This is what they're saying. They're saying it didn't happen. It's all made up. It's all made up. All major news coverage covered this. Hamas themselves came out and said, hey, by the way, we did this. Not only did we do this, we live streamed it. The information is coming from us. Not only did we do it, did we live stream it, we're proud of it. We celebrated it in all our countries. And yet there are people who are like, we don't believe you. No, like you have someone that says, no, I murdered this person. I destroyed this person. And they were like, no, I don't believe you. Oh, no, wait, but we have video proof showing that we did this. Nope, fake. And you have people that are celebrating that Jewish babies died. Fake. How dumb can you be? How idiotic can the world be? The people, like you come to a conclusion and be like, wait a minute. And this is a source of major anxiety for many people. There was another interview where somebody went and they were like, the journalist was like, yeah, we should denounce the beheading of babies and all. You were like, yeah, we should denounce it. And then at the end, they were like, by the way, we're talking about Israeli babies, right? I'd be like, wait, no, we're talking about Gaza babies. I'd be like, no, Gaza babies were not beheaded. Like Israeli babies were beheaded. And they were like in shock. Be like, no, it's Gaza that's the victim over here, not Israel that's a victim. And they were like, no, we have proof that it was very obvious it was Israel. And they were like, no, that it's not true. You're talking about how people can deny the Holocaust? This is Holocaust denying in real time. I have so much more that I want to speak about. We'll have to save it for a different time. We didn't even begin to speak about what goes on in colleges and during there. But you start asking, be like, wait a minute. Like, how blind can people be? Like, it's so obvious. How could there be so many people that are blinded? How could it be countries that are against Israel at this point? And we think we need Israel on our side. We need people on our. We need people on our side. We need America on our side. We need. And I want to share with you the point. The point that I had a lot more ways to expand on this, but because of the late hour, I'm going to skip a few things. I'm going to get to the point. And that is everything that I spoke until now was just drilling in on how obvious it was that Israel's right. And how blinded the world is that Israel is wrong. And now I want to share with you the point behind all this entire rant that I went through, this entire news coverage that I went through for one major point. And that is from this week's parsha. And this is, Rabbi Fran brings us down that the pasuk in this week's parsha, Noach, in Bereshis, the 11th chapter, the 4th pasuk, Vayomer hava nivneh elanu ir. We know the famous tower that the generation of the flood, right after the generation of the flood, they wanted to build a tower. Now the Medrash goes and comments, what was the purpose of this tower? And what happened with this tower? So the Medrash says that what happened with this tower is that a third of this tower was burnt. A third of this tower sunk to the ground, and a third of this tower still remains in existence. Now, Rabbi Fran brings down Rav Nissen Alpert. Rav Nissen Alpert was a Talmud, a student of Rav Moshe Feinstein. And he brings an explanation from another Medrash. And listen to this, because this is going to make everything so clear. And the Medrash is, what was the reason, what was the motivation behind the Tower of Bavel? What was the reason that people built a huge tower? And this is based off a pasuk in Bereshis, chapter 11, verse 1. And that's the beginning of this description of what happened over here with the building of the Tower of Bavel. And the pasuk goes and says, "Vehikol aretz safa achas." The entire land, the entire world was one language. Udvarim achadim, and they spoke unified words. Now, on this pasuk, the Medrash has three different opinions on what's going on. Why did they build? What was the motivation behind building the Tower of Bavel? So one of the interpretation was that it was that the Dvarim Achadim, literally it means that they were united. Dvarim Achadim means that it was uniform, it was united. They all spoke one language and they were very, very united. There was a common cause, and the common cause was a new world order, a universal government they wanted to build. A second opinion is Dvarim Achadim. Dvarim Achadim, Chad comes from sharp. They were doing sharp words. What was the sharp words? Explains the Medrash. This is referring to they were fighting sharply against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They were challenging God. They wanted to battle God. And in fact, they put a sword on top of this Tower of Bavel. They wanted to fight God. And the third opinion of what was the motivation behind this was that they wanted to prevent a future flood. A flood just happened. And they thought the reason why the flood happened is that every so often the sky caves in, the world caves in, and there's a flood. So let's build a big tower and we'll hold up the sky that it shouldn't cave down. Explains Rav Albert. So these are three philosophies in life. And listen to this, because it's going to give you such clarity. One of the philosophies was burnt, no longer exists. The second philosophy has sunk, which means is that sometimes it comes up, it submerges, and once in a while it peeps its head up. But the third of them is still alive and still well. Now let's explain. The first philosophy, we will wage war against God. That's destroyed. That's been burnt. Nobody wages war against God. In fact, many people, since from the Crusades to Jihad, they wage war in the name of God. They don't wage war against God. If you want to say atheism is indifferent to a certain extent. So really, this ideology was burnt, was destroyed. That's the first one. It's no longer around. The second one is the New World Order, the unity. They all spoke one language. They were united. They wanted to make one government. This philosophy pops its head up every once in a while and tries, but it always fails. It always submerges itself. And that is, we saw after World War I, the nations of the world, they try to form a new world order. One government, one unity. They called it the League of Nations. This didn't last long until World War II. After World War II, another attempt called the United Nations. Obviously, anybody that knows anything about news knows that United Nations is a joke. It's a fat joke. It's like at this point, I don't know who listens to them. It's like whatever. Yeah, you just talk and do your own thing. Meet upon yourself. It's a bunch of people are playing dress up. They're nonsense. They're useless. Meaning that this ideology of having a one world government, pops its head up every once in a while. Until Mashiach comes, it's not gonna stand. But the third philosophy still exists and still stands, and that is that we have to build a tower to prevent another flood. That is the people of the generation of the flood. What did they say? You know what the problem was? It was nature. Every so often, nature goes and nature destroys itself. Every so often, nature collapses and there's a flood, and we have to go and we have to protect ourselves. And that's why we're going to build a huge tower to hold up the sky so that there's not going to be any more floods. You know what the more modern terminology of this is? Never again. You know how people say after the Holocaust? Never again. Every so often, the Jews get destroyed. Never again. You want to know how we're going to stop it? We're going to have the strongest army in the world. We're going to have the strongest intelligence in the world. We're going to have a very strong air force. We're going to have accuracy that we could pinpoint exactly where we want to bomb. And that's how we're going to do never again. Because we're going to build a tower, because this is all nature. And we saw very obviously that you can't say never again, because never again happened in a certain extent, and a very small happened with this 13 to 1400 people massacre. Don't say never again. You know what people said before this? They didn't say ani mamin HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ani mamin b'tzahal. I believe in the IDF. IDF couldn't protect us from this. The Israeli intelligence couldn't protect us from this. The Mossad couldn't protect us from this. But you know where we put our trust, unfortunately? In the Israeli intelligence, in the IDF, in the Israeli government. You want to know what the Chooos HaLevavos tells us? In the introduction to Sha'ar HaBitachon, that a person who doesn't trust in Hashem, but trusts in someone else, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you know what? You trust in the other person? I'm going to take a step back. You trust in that person? Let that person protect you. We trusted falsely in so many wrong areas. And you know what HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed us? You can't trust in them. The Beis HaLevi brings it very clearly. If you trust in anyone or anything other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not only HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not help, he will bring a curse. And he brings a proof of this from the pasuk in Yirmiyahu. Ar hagever sheyiftach be'adam. Cursed is a man that trusts in a man. And the Tehillim, Chapter 146, verse 3 tells us, Al tiftechu benedivim, do not trust in generous people, but then Adam she'ein lo teshua, in mankind which has no salvation. We can't trust in people, in intelligence. We have one source and one source only to trust, and that is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yosef Hatzadik, in Bereshis, if you want to look it up, chapter 40, verse 23. It says, famous pasuk, that the Sha'ar HaBitachon did not remember Yosef and he forgot him. Everyone asks, what's with the double lashon? What's with the double language? Why does it say that he didn't remember Yosef and he forgot him? What's the redundancy? And Rashi explains, that they failed to remember Yosef and he completely forgot all about Yosef. But listen to what the Rashbam says. And it's true. And by the way, everything. I didn't mean to come out like Rashi says 100% true. But listen, but the point is, I want to say what the Rashbam brings down. The Rashbam says that if a person relies on natural means, you know what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says? You're relying on natural means, you're relying on people? Go ahead. I'm going to leave you to the natural way. Yosef relied on natural efforts. Yosef was relying on the Sha'ar HaBitachon. He was relying on the cupbearer. You go and you tell about my situation to Paro and tell him that I'm innocent. Yosef relied on this person. And you know what happened? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you're relying on this person? No problem. Let's see what happens. And you know what happened? This person is human. He forgot. And until he kept on hoping for this person, Yosef was not saved. And listen to how the Rashbam explains it. And this is the Bina Le'itim also brings this down. Sha'ar HaBitachon did not remember Yosef, vayishkachehu, and he forgot about him. Says the Bina Le'itim, you know what it means, vayishkachehu, and he forgot about him? That's referring to Yosef. Yosef for 2 years, he was relying on the cupbearer. Remember me and save me from where I am. But after 2 years of not being saved, the cupbearer, the Sha'ar HaBitachon, forgot about it. Finally, Yosef was the one, vayishkachehu. The pasuk, when the pasuk says, V'lo zachar Sha'ar HaBitachon as Yosef, that's referring to the Sha'ar HaBitachon. He didn't remember Yosef, but vayishkachehu, that's referring to Yosef Hatzadik. He forgot about Sha'ar HaBitachon. For 2 years, he relied on Sha'ar HaBitachon. You're going to help me. You're going to save me. But the second that Yosef vayishkachehu, that he forgot about Sha'ar HaBitachon, and he said, I have no one to rely on, only on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I could only rely on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All of a sudden, the next pasuk, all of a sudden the end came. Yosef got redeemed. Explains the Or HaChaim. Paro had the dream. Again, I'm giving you a lot of information that, didn't clarify everything because it's late and I want to bring to my point. But Paro had a dream, a disturbing dream, that he needed Yosef to interpret it. The Or HaChaim said he had this dream for every single night for 2 years. You know when Yosef got redeemed? You know when Yosef had the opportunity to go and interpret the dream? The second that Yosef forgot about Sha'ar HaBitachon and he remembered that it's only God, that's when Paro remembered the dream and he says, I need a dream interpreter. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent him this dream for 2 years straight, just waiting for Yosef just to rely on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But he didn't. So when Paro woke up, he forgot about the dream. But when finally Yosef forgot about Sha'ar HaBitachon and he only focused on God, now Paro remembered the dream. Now Paro said, I need a dream interpreter. Now Paro said, who's going to interpret my dream? And now Yosef got freed and Yosef got raised up to the level that he was. You want to know the questions that we've asked this entire class, which may seem like a current events class and nothing else other than that. But if you stuck around for this long, then I'm going to ask you the question that I ask numerous times. How is it possible that the world is supporting Hamas? How is it possible that the world is supporting the Palestinian Authority? How is it possible that countries are supporting Palestinian Authority? How is it possible that even America, who's supporting Israel very strongly, is giving $100 million to the Palestinian Authority? Because you want to know, again, one of the many reasons don't know why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing it. I'm just bringing out one lesson that we can learn. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees, you know what? We're going to rely on the IDF. We're going to rely on the Mossad. We're going to rely on Israeli intelligence. We're going to rely on America, who supports us nonstop. We're going to rely on the other nations of the world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take a step back and be like, Bechavod, you want to rely on the other nations of the world? Look what happens when you rely on the other nations of the world. We have to come to a realization that Ein lanu amile hishain elo al avinu shebashamayim. We have nobody, no one to rely on, only on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you look at the news and you say it doesn't look good for Israel, doesn't matter. When you look at the news and you say the nations are going against us, it doesn't matter. When people are blinded and they can't see the truth and they're siding with the side of evil, it doesn't matter. What matters is who we rely on. You want to know why? One of the many reasons why maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu is showing that the world is supporting Hamas, supporting Palestinians. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us, stop relying on the world. How many times? It's so obvious. Evil is knocking on your door. How can you be so blind? There's only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's only me. There's nothing else, says Hashem. There's nothing else that we could rely on. And yes, we're grateful. We have tremendous hakaras hatov for American government for giving us, and everybody, non-Jew and Jew apart, that supports us. We have tremendous gratitude. Not denying the fact. But we don't rely on them. We rely on God and nothing else other than God. And when we start relying on Hashem, then we can see the miracles. These days, we have the opportunity, it's giving to us not daily, hourly, by the minute, that we could work on our Emunah and realizing that there's nothing else other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We can come to such a... HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving us, throwing it in our direction, the tests of Emunah. We have to say, Ein od milvado. People are getting anxious. The world is siding with Hamas. There are many people that are siding with terrorism. There are many countries in the world that are siding with terrorism. What's going to be with Iran? What's going to be with Lebanon? What's going to be with Gaza? We have all these questions, and what are we going to do? You want to know what we should do? We have nothing to rely on other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is the whole point of what I'm coming to bring out tonight. For the past hour, we have went and we have spoken on how obvious it is that Israel's right, and how obvious it doesn't that it just doesn't make any sense that people are supporting terrorism. But at the same point in time, how obvious is it that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is just telling us, rely on me. I got you. You are my people. I will take care of you. Don't rely on anyone else. Yes, we have to do our ishtadlus. Yes, the people that are in our army, we have to fight. And the people, we have to do everything politically, everything from all areas, we have to do. I'm not saying that you don't need to do the ishtadlus. You do need to do the ishtadlus, but I feel like the area where people get anxious, what would the world think? That gives you an opportunity to work on your Emunah. It doesn't matter what the world thinks. It doesn't matter how it looks. It doesn't matter if Israel's coming out on top or if Israel's coming out on bottom. We have nothing to rely on other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We don't rely on anyone else, because if we rely on anyone else, says the Sha'ar HaBitachon, says the Chooos HaLevavos, Rabbi Bachya, says if you rely on anybody else, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you know what? Let them take care of you. We don't want that. We want to tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we rely only on you. We look at the news of the world and we get anxious. We look at the news and we get anxious. We look at everything, and you know what? One of our tafkids right now, it's Emunah. But what does it mean, Emunah? Emunah doesn't mean like, oh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take care of us. We don't have to worry about anything. That would be great if the sentence just ended there. But the sentence continues. And the continuation of that sentence is that yes, we have to rely only on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But what are we doing for that? Are we doing tshuva? Are we doing Ma'asim Tovim? Are we learning Torah? Are we increasing in our Achdus? Are we increasing in our Tznius? Are we increasing in our Shmir Sanayim? What are we doing? Going and signing petitions to ban college professors is not the tafkid of what a Yid needs to do right now. What a Yid needs to do right now is to go and increase in their Ma'asim Tovim, in the Torah, in their learning, in their praying, and everything spiritual is what we need to do, because we have to realize HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sending us a signs. Ein lanu al mi lehishayin elu al avinu b'shamayim. We have nobody other than God. Palestinians are saying the same thing. Allahu Akbar, before they blow themselves up and before they murder every single person in their vicinity. What are we saying? We're coming and we're seeing the news. We're seeing what's going on. We're supporting, and we should, financially, in all areas, whatever we can. Pro-Israel, pro the IDF, pro everything that the Jewish nation is doing. But who are we relying on? HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed us very clearly, there's nothing that we can, no one that we can rely on other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So let us show HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we don't rely on anyone else other than you. By doing tshuva, Ma'asim Tovim, everything that we spoke about in the previous classes, just what are we doing to step up to the plate? You want to support Israel? You want to support, the war? Say a kapitel d'Olam. Do something spiritually that shows HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we know the origin of all this. We know the source of all this. And we're here to say, we're back. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're coming back to you. We fell before, but we're not going to fall again. You don't need to send us any more reminders. We are coming back. And you want to know what the slogan of never again means? That's when we're telling HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you never have to remind us again. Because we know that we're Jewish, we're proud that we're Jewish, and we're going to do what's right and what needs to be done. And that's getting close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. With that, let us say a kapitel tehillim to all our fellow brothers and sisters in Eretz Yisrael, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should watch over them and bring no more harm to the Jewish nation. We're going to say again, Kapitel Kuf Lamed. Say it together with me. Even if you're listening to this on a recording, say the Tehillim. One kapitel, that's all I'm asking. Shir Amalois, Mimamakim, Karasicha Adonai. Adonai Shema Bekaili, Tiana Aznecha Kashuv, Isa Kol Tachanunai. Im Avoinais, Tishmarya, Adonai Mi Amoid. Ki imcha haslicha leman tivarei. Ki visi Adonai kivsa nafshi velidvarei haichalti. Nafshi l'Adonai mishamim l'abaiker, shaimrim l'abaiker. Yachal Yisrael al Adonai, ki im Adonai achesed v'arbei moifedus. V'hu yifta es Yisrael mikol avoinesav. Achenu kol bais Yisrael, hanesunim batzara v'ashivya. Ha'amdim bein bayam uvein bayabasha, hamakam yirachem aleim, v'yetziam mitzara l'rvacha, me'afela le'ayra, mishibad le'geula, hashta ba'agala v'zman karev, and amar amen. We'll open up for questions. Actually, before we open up for questions, I just want to make it very clear. This class was not a regular class. We went very heavily in current events. The whole purpose of the current events is just to bring the point home. I can't bring it any clearer. That no matter how obvious it is, you have to realize that the world is blinded. And if the world is blinded, then we have only one place to focus on. But while that being said, you have many, many people in the world that see the truth. And they see that Israel is on the right, and they're on Israel's side, and we thank them, and we appreciate them, and we want their continued support. That's the hishtalas that we need to do. We're not denouncing that, but the main focus, realize who you have to rely on. Okay, let's go for the questions, and we'll end it off. Oh wow, it's late. Okay, Why do we say we can't judge the Palestinians for being brainwashed to kill? Humans don't need to even believe in God to know that killing is wrong. It's a Noahide law. It's not blaming the Nazis for killing the Jews. Because excellent question. I don't know that I could say honestly, deep down, that I can judge the Palestinians, because you're right. I agree with you. But at the same point in time, we're not God. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu answers that. But with that being said, the aspect of killing innocent people, that I don't see a way that they can't be judged for that. Like that, no, there's no two ways about it. And that part I do agree with you. Next question: do you think it's unsafe to stay in these countries and we should all move to Israel? I have a lot to say about this, actually. If you're able to move to Israel, by all means you should. But it depends on a lot of factors of where you're holding, spiritually. Let's be honest. It's not safe anywhere. It's not safe anywhere. You look, I have way too much to speak about it. Maybe we'll speak about it a different class. But the simple answer to that is you have to really look. There's a lot of factors. How are you going to do spiritually? How are your children doing? How's your husband doing? There's so many factors before you move to Israel that you have to ask yourself. Okay. Who was the Al Jazeera reporter who wrote about Hamas misfire? Is she still alive? I don't know if she's still alive. I would hope so. But the name I did mention. I'll tell you now if you want to know the name again. I have to find. I wrote it down. Hold on just 1 second. Last name was like Khan. Farida Khan. That was her name. I hope she's still alive, but it's a good question. And thank you for the kind words. Okay, next question. Wasn't Yosef doing his ishtalos by asking the Yasar Mashkim to remember him? He was. And just like us, we have to do our ishtalos. We have to go and we have to show support where support is done. We have to go and we have to rally our senators, and we should do that is 100% true, that we should do our ishtadlos. And I don't, that's not my message that we shouldn't do any ishtadlos. We do need to do our ishtadlos. But after we do our ishtadlos, do we rely on the senator? Do we rely on the government? Do we rely on the president? Or do we rely on HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Meaning that we should do our ishtadlos, but then who do we rely on? Okay, next question. What about Satanism? Their rituals are all about making fun of holy things by doing disgusting and pure. Could they be fighting the war against God? Interesting question. To be honest, the whole thing's regarding that entire cult. I believe it's more, again, I didn't do enough research on it, but from my minimal research on it, it seems like they just want to delve into their desires. Because you look at all their rituals, it's all very immoral rituals. So they just try to do that. I don't think they believe in it. They just want to use an excuse for immorality. Okay. Some rabbis are saying we need to get out of the big cities. What is your take? I don't see what was the reason to get out of the big cities. Like it's dangerous everywhere, and you have to rely on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I didn't hear about that. Okay, people are saying Mashiach is around the corner. How do you focus on responsibility when feeling Mashiach is approaching? So it's actually, thank you for the question on Mashiach. There's been, since last class, I was thinking about speaking about Mashiach, and I spoke a little bit about it last week. I might, maybe, depending on what's happening in the current week, maybe we'll do a class on Mashiach and the current event to a certain extent. I don't know, because I have a lot of mixed feelings on how to present this information in current events regarding Mashiach, but maybe we'll speak about that in the coming class. Maybe, I'll have to see. I have to process a few things, and we have to see how things come out. In any case, thank you all for joining us. That was the final question. Until next week, may HaKadosh Baruch Hu watch over the entire Jewish nation. May we hear only good news this week and the coming weeks. And may HaKadosh Baruch Hu pay back those that really need deserving of those paybacks.